5 years ago, the Montreal Canadiens played off against the Tampa Bay Lightning in the Stanley Cup Finals. Nikita Kucherov helped the Lightning get a staggering Game 1 victory, and we all know what happens next. Well, based off of what we had seen in the NHL yesterday, with the points that were acquired and the teams that clinched their playoff spots, we now have official confirmation that the Habs and Lightning will be meeting in the first round of this year's playoffs. This is your Lightning and Canadiens series preview. Now here's the thing. Right now, both of these teams have one game remaining. The most points they could get is 108. Buffalo technically has the tiebreaker despite having 108 points themselves, so whether or not Tampa or Montreal wins their final game of the season, Buffalo is locked up at number 1. We know it will be Tampa versus the Habs, we just don't know who's going to have home ice advantage. Now, you could say that's a pretty big element as to how the story is going to unfold. I think it's a fair point to bring up that home ice advantage does give a certain level of push to the team that is at home. But for argument's sake, let's just talk about both of these teams. Let's talk about where they were 5 years ago, and let's talk about how they're doing now. Because this is the lineup of guys that suited up for both Tampa Bay and Montreal to start out that 2021 Game 1. For the Lightning, you had Andre Palat, Brayden Point, and Nikita Kucherov on the top line. Alex Killorn, Anthony Chiarelli, and Steven Stamkos on the second, followed up by Goodrow, Gord, Coleman, Ross Colton, Tyler Johnson, and Pat Maroon. On D, you had Hedman, Ruda, McDonough, Cernak, Sergachev, and Savard, with Vasilevsky and McElhinney in the crease. A lot of these guys are still with the Tampa Bay Lightning, believe it or not. And then in Montreal, you have Arturi Lehkonen suiting up alongside of Philippe Deneau and Brendan Gallagher. Nick Suzuki, Cole Caulfield were playing with Tyler Toffoli. Paul Byron, Jesperi Kotkaniemi, and Josh Anderson were on the third line, followed up by Jake Evans, Eric Stahl, and Corey Perry. It's kind of funny. These guys, still with the team. These guys, still with the team. This guy and this guy, still with the team. Meanwhile, the entire D-core and goaltending core has been cut and replaced. This is what Montreal's team looks like today, heading into the Stanley Cup Playoffs in Round 1. Caulfield and Suzuki are joined by a new first overall pick in Juraj Slafkovsky. Texier suits up alongside a Newhook and Demidov on line 2. Kapanen is with Bolduc and Kirby Dach. And then that same Jake Evans is still in the exact same spot that he was 5 years ago on the fourth line left wing, alongside of Deneau and Josh Anderson. Gallagher is currently listed as a healthy scratch. There are a number of guys that are out and day-to-day. But Carrier, Dobson, Reinbacher, you could mix and match whichever right-handed defenseman you want. This is what the D-core pairing looks like as of right now. Matheson, Gooley, Struble, Hudson, Reinbacher, and Xhekaj. So we'll see whether or not this group of guys sticks around in this order heading into the playoffs. Of course, in net, you have Jakob Dobesch and Jacob Fowler. Meanwhile, for the Tampa Bay Lightning, we mentioned that a lot of their guys from their 2021 run are still there. That is currently true. Anthony Chiarelli is now the first-line center. Brayden Point was knocked down to line 2. Corey Perry has switched sides. He was in Montreal 5 years ago. Now he is on the Tampa Bay Lightning. Nikita Kucherov's still there. They added Jake Gensel. The bottom 6 looks a little bit different, but Yanni Gourde still has a presence on this team. Nick Paul, Zemgus Girgensons, Bjorkstrand, Geekie, and Scott Sabarin. Meanwhile, on D, Ryan McDonough is back. He's going to be, hopefully, bringing together his stability on the back end. Declan Carlisle was promoted to top pair because Darren Radish, unfortunately, is day-to-day. There also are a number of guys here that are worthy of being mentioned. Victor Hedman is out. Who knows if we have already seen him play his last NHL game. Brandon Hagel is day-to-day. These two guys especially are going to provide a really big element of scoring to this team. But ultimately, when you think about it, I know a lot of Canadiens fans can think about the Tampa Bay Lightning as the big bad Lightning, especially with Andrei Vasilevskiy in net, a guy who is an absolute maniac. You take a look at the overall numbers that he has been able to produce this season. Andrei Vasilevskiy, I'd honestly be confident in saying that this is a guy that is capable of being in the Vezina conversation this year. I mean, Elite Prospects has him at a 9.12. He had a 9.37 back in that playoff run wherein the Canadiens lost in the finals to Tampa Bay. So obviously, there are some old wounds that are being dug up with the presence of Andrei Vasilevskiy in this matchup. But look no further, because the Montreal Canadiens have their own goaltending that needs to be taken into account as well. Jacob Fowler has gone out there 9.6-2, 908 save percentage. Jakub Dobeš has a 903, at least according to Daily Faceoff. These guys are no Carey Price, they're no Andrei Vasilevskiy, but they do have the passion, the desire, the motivation, and the skill to be able to steal a game or two. So we'll see how Marty St. Louis handles the goaltending heading into this matchup. When it comes to offense, when it comes to forward options, obviously you can say that Nick Suzuki and Cole Caulfield are the two guys leading the charge. One's a 100-point scorer, the other's a 50-goal scorer. On Tampa Bay's side of things, though, you have to pay attention because there are some very notable names on this squad, too. 5 years ago, you had Nikita Kucherov dominating and scoring all these points. Well, guess what? Today, Nikita Kucherov is still dominating and scoring all those points. He's got 130 on the year, followed up by Jake Guentzel at 88, Brandon Hagel at 74, and Darren Raddysh at 70. 4 guys at 70-plus points for the Tampa Bay Lightning, and if you want to take a look at 50-plus points, they have a total of 6. Braden Point would have been much higher had he just played more games. On the Montreal side of things, you have a superior scoring defenseman in Lane Hutson compared to Darren Raddysh, although Raddysh, you cannot discount this guy. He has been one of the only defensemen in the NHL who is even coming close to Lane Hutson's offensive production. And then you think about it, there also is a 100-point scorer in Nick Suzuki. Caulfield's at 88 points, Slavkovsky's at 73, Demidov is at 62. This is the new Big Five for the Montreal Canadiens, and everybody else you can say the depth is running pretty deep with the Habs as well. Dobson, Kapanen, Matheson. You take a look at it, there are 14 guys on the Canadiens with 20-plus points on the year. Tampa Bay, they have 13. Honestly, looking at it now, Jonas Moser has 29 points, Daou has 29 points. That's a pretty impressive number, I'm not gonna lie. Goaltending-wise, yeah, these guys are gonna have to carry the charge and try to go head-to-head with Andrei Vasilevskiy in net. It's not gonna be an easy task, but I think it's a good challenge for this young Canadiens group. Let's go out there and read what the folks on our Habs are talking about in regards to this playoff matchup. They'll play off against Tampa Bay in the first round of the playoffs, still fighting for home ice advantage. Rematch of 2021 under much different circumstances. The young up-and-coming team against the window is closing old farts without a $30 million cap advantage this time around. Yeah, we are not going to acknowledge that. But Tampa Bay, I think they're certainly guilty of some of those kinds of things in the past. This is our Slay the Dragon moment. Dragging these nuts over John Cooper's... Okay, we're not going to continue with that. Avenge Carey, boys. He deserved that freaking Stanley Cup. I'm not looking forward to playing Vasilevskiy in the playoffs. Young team and all that, so my expectations are low. But winning the series would be sweet revenge from 2021. I love it, Honest Despot said. They'll either prove after round 1 they might just be a legit contender, or we'll all look back on a very successful season and look forward to likely an exciting and eventful offseason. Really, that's the best way I think you can look at this playoff series. The Montreal Canadiens have nothing to lose if they literally lose to the Tampa Bay Lightning. They're a good team. The fact is, both of these teams were tied in the NHL standings this year. Montreal was able to pull off some things and some statistics that we hadn't seen in decades, so obviously there's a lot of excitement there. But challenging one of the most experienced veteran championship caliber teams over the past few years in round 1 is just going to be another obstacle. And the Canadiens worked to get to this point, so there's no sad moping around here. This is just how it goes. Please, Tampa, lose your final game and let us win tomorrow. The Bell Center Game 1 will pull my legs out of the grave. I'd prefer to start the series on the road, so much less pressure. So it does seem like there are some varying opinions as to where the series should start, what's preferred, what's not. I think at the end of the day, Habs fans can be happy with this. They can be excited. And I want you to let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. How do you feel about Montreal versus Tampa Bay heading into Game 1 of the 2026 Stanley Cup Playoffs? Who's going to win the series? Where do you think it goes? I'm going to say Montreal wins in 7. Let's just toss it out there. I'll lock it in. Montreal wins in 7. Thoughts in the comment section. I hope you enjoyed this video. And bye.